This is Jonathan St. James, and you're listening to The Truth is Still Straight podcast. Okay, I won't say turn your radio down this week, but ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, depending on what time and what place in the world you are listening from. A special shout out to all those who share birthdays this month. October is here. I feel like the year's almost over. Shout out to my sister Angela. I don't know if you're listening, but happy birthday, October 2nd. Today, Sam, happy birthday, October 3rd. Jim, I guess you'll share your happy birthday with Sam as well. Do you know anyone else whose birthday is this month or this week or this weekend?
My son's birthday is October the 15th.
October 15th. Oh. Happy birthday. Which son?
Lathan, the youngest one. He'll be 11. Yay.
So just to everyone know that they're all L's, LaDonna, Lathan, and Landon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The L's.
And I'm guessing that was done on purpose.
It was actually done on purpose.
Yeah, I have a friend. Her name is Marissa, and all her kids have M's in their names. And her husband has an M too. Michael, Meg, and Melissa, I think, is the other one. So.
Yeah. Their dad's last name is with L too. So
yeah. So is that how you said you can be with somebody who didn't have an L in their name? Is that how it worked?
No, I did not. I was actually, we have kind of a family tradition. And everybody's name was L, and his name just so happened to be L, because the children's names, you know how women are. We pick these names out, but when we started knowing that we're going to have kids, so even in college, I think it was probably before even he and I were dating, I had already picked out the names for my sons because they were going to flow with our family. I mean, my grandmother's name is Laureen. My mother is Linda. I got a Lurleen, Lucretia. Then me come with LaDonna. Even on my father's side, my younger sister is Lori. His name is Larry. My older sister is Lakita. So we're all like in the L.
So if someone took a whole family on a bus, they say, "Oh, I'm taking L's."
Okay, comedian. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some things here. What's going on in the world? Oh, yeah, this Jada Pinkett Smith. I don't know what's going on with that lady. My only advice to her is stop talking in the media. I don't know what's going on in your life that you have to talk about all these dysfunctions you got going on, but some stuff, leave for the therapy. Everything doesn't have to be in the news and the media. And thinking about the red table talk she had with her husband after that entanglement that she had, I mean, at this point, just keep it behind closed doors. I don't think you need to talk about your drama to be relevant. I don't think so. I think you can do it enough in your life. I mean, I heard she's in the new Matrix movie, and she didn't get that because she had an entanglement or problems in her marriage or in her life or anything. And I just hate that celebrities do that, especially she talked about it, her issue that she had with her husband in the red table talk. And now months later, we're talking about something else. And now there's this allegation that she has sex with an underage kid, the guy from Criss Cross. And who knows if that's true or not, but I hope it's not true. I don't know. I try not to jump on stories because people say what they want to say, and this person is dead this week, but you just saw them around the corner 5 minutes ago and stuff like that. But mine just, if, anybody's listening, Will, if you're listening by some chance, or Jeffrey Butler or whatever, Jazz, just tell Jada, whatever you got going on, just, really talk to the people that can help you. The media doesn't help. All they do is exploit people all the time. And you shouldn't really put your family out there. You got kids and whatever you think of Will and yourself, you shouldn't really put your stuff out there in the media. If it's not going to help you or help other people, I would say just leave it out. And that's for anyone. I see people who just bash people on Facebook and social media, their personal lives and stuff like that. if it's not really going to edify anything or uplift or enrich or enhance, I just say just leave it for the authorities. And those people are your pastor or a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever therapist you may be seeing, and so forth. And that's my take on that. What about you, LaDonna Marie? Have any thoughts on that?
You know, I feel you, and say that maybe, most things that they should keep to themselves. Um, but I did see, like, in going through my emails, I saw that Will is about to come out with a book, with a memoir or something like that. And so, celebrities mostly always do that. They come out with what's some stuff to get people to read the book and upcoming and everything. And I don't think that they should do that. I think that you should, keep it to yourself. And like you said, to the therapist or to the people that are going to help you, because now you have all of the world, in your business. And like, even when I attempted to watch that Red Table Talk with her and her husband and Will, when they were coming out, and the tears and everything, and then when you read all the other stuff and you hear all the other stuff, you just don't know what to believe. And so I just stopped listening because
Yeah.
I was like, this is I don't know what to believe. And then it's just, I don't like confusion and too much, drama and all of that. So I just said, I just put it to rest. But I do believe that we should keep some things to ourselves. And if it's not going, like you said, if it's not going to help, I believe in being encouraging and uplifting and helping people. But if it's not helping, then why harm the lives of others by putting things out there? But people, I mean, that's how people want to be known and seen, and how they get more, people following them by sharing all of that. And the world is waiting on it. Like, they're biting at the chunks to hear what's going on, and like what's they really, it's like a gossipy town and place. And so I'm over it, but hey, that's what they feel like they have to do for it to get more people to listen, or maybe to tell their story.
And the crowd agrees with you, of course. Jim, so you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. It just seemed like everything snowballed. In August Alsina said something, but it was either then or when E does their True Hollywood Story, and everybody be watching that. So it would have came out eventually. But if all honesty, if somebody else isn't mentioning it, you don't need to really say anything. Like what Donna said, sometimes you gotta let sleeping dogs lie. Keep it there. Keep it right there in that moment. You don't gotta bring it with you. Just keep it right there and just keep moving forward. I'm just not of these things, because it just makes people just seem only interested in gossip, like what Donna said. Like, it's just gossip, gossip, gossip. Ooh, this is this, juicy, juicy. Like, people don't got their own life in order, and they're following something else that they don't even need to be following in the first place. So, I mean, if people want to enjoy it, but please, it's not life. Don't confuse it for yours. Don't try to intermix or intertwinkle. Leave the people who have those issues, leave them right there. You don't gotta worry about it or follow behind it, or it's not information you can use. It's not gonna better your life. It's just one person's life's journey, and everybody's road's different. Don't act like you gotta travel that same road as that person to get a book. So that was
I
it.
agree with that. So let's see who else has something to say. Okay, hold on one second here. We have a guest. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, what do you have to say, President Obama?
Come on, man.
I agree with that. And you have anything else to say, President Obama?
Don't make someone else clean up your mess.
There you go. Who can't agree with that? Thank you, President. All right, I appreciate that. Okay. What else did I want to talk about? Did we? I don't even think we talked about this last time. Freaking R. Kelly. A whole mess over here, and he just got convicted on quite a few charges, and he will be doing anything between 10 years to life for all his troubles. And it's just weird, to see the reactions of some people. They want to talk about Elvis, and they want to talk about Woody Allen and Hugh Hefner and whatever they're doing. But the one thing that I've thought about in life when it comes to what people do, let's talk about what people do when that topic is at hand. So if you want to comment about Hugh Hefner or Woody Harrelson, Woody Allen, there was plenty of time to do that. So whatever they've decided to do or not do, every case should be looked upon on its own, and we have to stop this what about isms. And if you want to react to something that somebody did, whether they deserved it or didn't, just leave it on the merit of that. And it's very unfortunate. The sad thing that I will say about R. Kelly, and I would never defend anything that he's done to anyone, but the saddest part about this is he is a victim himself. And we often talked about this on the podcast. A lot of times people end up repeating the things that were done to them to other people. And he just became one of those people. What was done to him, he just put it upon others. Now, I don't know how bad his situation was that was done to him, but if any of these stories are true with what these women were saying about him, is incredibly troubling. And and I think people don't understand how hard it is when somebody has manipulated someone. We talk about a cult and stuff like that, how when someone gets hold of you mentally, how hard it is for people to break free from that, even when the door is not locked. Some of them said they were locked in rooms and this and that, but sometimes the mental hold that someone can hold on you is more bonding than someone keeping you in a locked door. So, I think people don't understand that. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? So sometimes just the breaking someone's spirit can, we think about slavery, and you talk about people that ran away, they escaped, and some people just stayed there. We talk about the whole Harriet Tubman thing, and she tried to bring people with her, and there were some people that just preferred to stay. And so sometimes the mental hold that someone can have on another person is a lot stronger than the physical hold. Because if you don't want to be bonded physically, people do things to get out. But it's very hard when people don't realize that they've had that hold upon them mentally, and they don't know to break free of that. So to me, that is my takeaway from this situation. I don't feel sorry for him in the sense that he was convicted and he may do prison time, because he did something. I don't know everything he did. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's not true. But in the end, he's gotten convicted of those things, and he has to answer for what he did in the least. And, I think we just need to let the merit stand for itself. And, I would think that if I did something, that people would look at it, what I did or didn't do for myself, and not base it on what other people in the world did, because that matters not. It's what he did, what he was convicted of, what he should have been doing, and so forth. So, it's a very unfortunate thing. I'd be a lie if I said I didn't like his music. At points in time, I hope that things would get better for him, that he would improve, but I didn't see the case of that ever happening. And that to me is the pretty sad part, because, you just hope for the best for everyone. I don't wish ill on anyone, even the people who don't care for me. So it's very unfortunate that he did those things. It's very unfortunate those things were done to him. But I'm going to say the saddest part of all of this is that people enabled this behavior. And that's the saddest part, because again, I think about Whitney Houston, I think about Michael Jackson, I think about everything they went through. And anyone in situations like that had substance abuse or some type of addiction that they've experienced, that there are lots of people that would help people do the bad things, but to turn their life around, the crowd is small. And then, of course, if you've ever been one person against 100, 100 voices are louder than one voice. And if you're not looking to hear that one voice, you'll never hear it. And I'm pretty sure we've all on this show have experienced people who have been through those things, and you try to be the one voice and people reject you because they think you're hating, you're you're jealous or whatever the situation, you're trying to control them. Those are all excuses that I heard for why someone didn't want to listen to anything. And then I have to deal with years later. Oh, you were right. I'm sorry. But the things they've endured, unfortunately, have been painful up to that point. And some people still continue to go through it. And for those people, I pray that they will be delivered someday. Hopefully that happens. So, all right, Adana. Any words on that?
Wow. So I did see that come across my email too about the sentencing and everything. And I do just, I it's both sides of the fence. I mean, I feel for him because it did happen to him. And at the same time, getting help, I don't know if he ever got help or whatever, but for it to get to the magnitude of where it did get to, even I think it was maybe 2 years ago, I met one of the ladies from that series that was on. I couldn't watch it. Like maybe the first part I maybe started and then I couldn't watch it. But I ended up meeting one of the ladies. She actually came down to talk to the student body at our college about relationships and different things. And she had her book to tell her story. And so when I did see the sentences, I know that, for the people who had to endure those things, it's a stepping in some type of closure for them. But at the same time, like you said, I believe that each case should be merit based off what was done, what would that case for that person. And so, it's just been, I mean, I'd always liked R. Kelly's music and everything too, but right is right and wrong is wrong. And when you do things, when you do do things, then you have to be held accountable for them. So like I said, I saw it and I saw all the comments and different things from different people, but I just believe in, that this was what, had to happen for everything that had been done.
Yeah. And it's weird because now the topic is, oh, you listen to his music. And here's the thing. The one thing that I have said, I haven't really listened to his music. And it's not because because he did all these things, I'm not listening to it. It just happened that way. But the one thing that I wouldn't do ever is play his music at parties, because the one thing is I would never want to offend someone who may feel a way about it. And you never know how things affect people. So in some instances, you have to be sensitive to the people in your environment and know that first of all, if someone's paying me to play at their party, I'm not trying to do anything that's going to get me in trouble. One thing that I don't do is I try not to play music that has curse words in it. I try to play music that has no curse words at all. But unfortunately, society has said certain things are not profanity and allow them to be on songs, which is very hard. And of course, now Walmart is not really into the business of giving out CDs anymore. So a lot of the music that you would have ordinarily gotten from Walmart, which Walmart never allowed profanity in the CDs that they sold. So now you kind of have to go on streaming services and like iTunes or something like that. And most of the times, they got the they do have some clean versions, but even the clean versions, some of the words are profane and, can't play them. It's, and it's funny. I was at an event on Saturday and the DJ I'm like, what? We were at a kids event called Youth and Police Bridging the Community. And it was pretty much kids there, and they were playing some eating booty or something. Like, oh my goodness. This is not an appropriate song to be playing for young people, but that's the dilemma. But back to the point, and then I'll pass it over to Jim. But it's just a very unfortunate place that we are. And I would never tell people that they like his music and just because he did these things that they shouldn't, listen to his music or whatever. That's a personal choice. I may listen to his music if it pops up on my phone or whatever. I wouldn't play it at parties because you never know how people will respond to that. And I wouldn't want to trigger or offend anyone. because you never know what people go through. And there's certain things you say to somebody and they get triggered and will come apart right in front of your presence. And that's happened to me before. I've said something that generally wouldn't offend someone, but this person was triggered by it. So to, avoid those situations, I wouldn't play his music at parties that I was paid to play music at. Not that I'm this, DJ Khaled or somebody like that, but, I get paid from time to time. So, all right, Jem, what do you have on this?
It's a very unfortunate situation for all parties involved. I think that, what you said about, the bad actors enabling him for this type of behavior because they basically were using him because they were getting stuff from him. And, now that he's useless, just threw him to the wolves and, to say, okay, well, we got what he needed and stuff like that. That's fine, when you're benefiting off of someone, it's hard to say no because you don't have to do anything but just reaffirm their beliefs. But it shows the fact that you have no convictions yourself. You're just basically setting yourself up to the highest person, paying you that you don't have to do anything, and you'll suffer the consequences later. And now he's suffering the consequences, but the people that enabled him aren't doing that. That was in his circle is not really affecting them, or they're not anything happening to them or stuff like that. It's this. There's been rumors about him doing stuff like this for years, decades, because I found out in the '90s, late '90s about this. So it's decades it's been going on. And only now, after all that, he's being put on trial and stuff like that. It was very disingenuous, that whole process. It's because he had money, he's a singer. People glossed over it, even from the rumors. People glossed over it. Oh well, he makes good music, so it's okay or whatever. I don't believe it. Blah blah blah. Total type of excuses for him. And now that he has to face, a judge, face what he's done, and and accept the consequences. Half these people are just jumping ship. I'm like, you enabled him before. You had excuses for him before. What? Now that it's not cool anymore. It's a lack of conviction from people that I don't like. It's a lack of conviction. You should have, if you knew about it before, you should have spoke about it before. You should have been against it before. Stuff like that. It's not a matter of convenience to be like that with him after all this time. Secondly, he really did get away with it for a long time. A whole harem. I thought he stopped after like 2010 or something, and it just continued. I was kind of shocked, finding all these later allegations about him and stuff like that, and it was still continuing. And he said he doesn't get that much money off of his masters and stuff like that, but I don't know. It was just weird to me that it continued on. Maybe I figured you outgrow habits or you change or something as you get older, but I think that was the shocking part for me was hearing that was still continuing. He has to face judgment for it. He has to face for the consequences for it. I don't feel sorry for him at all. It's sad that his discography got to be partially discredited because of that. It's not like Milli Vanilli, but it's still got to be this, it has to be discredited because of his, personal life versus professional life. But sometimes that intertwined too, and it caused that type of behavior. So I don't feel bad for him. I do feel like he should have gotten help, but at that time and when he was '90s and stuff like that, I think probably music writing was his help because he was very talented at it, and he, was very passionate in his songs. So I believe that was part of his help, but I think that he should have just went beyond that and should have gotten more somebody really to talk to about it. Someone I won't say non-involved, but were just not involved with him, like a psychiatrist or something like that, non-partial, and just converse with them about it, and nobody doesn't have to know, keep it on the down low. I'm sorry, Tacky, but it was something that he could have done for himself. Sometimes you can't rely on your circle to do things. You have to do it on your own. And I think, if he would have done that, I think he would have been, a little bit better off.
So I forgot to play your theme song. So hold on one second. Let me get that in.
That just makes it.
Yeah, I forgot your theme song there. All right. So hold on a second here. It's time for our topic. So today's topic will be exposing the truth about yourself. And that is today's relationship topic. And for those of you who are listening on the Anchor, thank you for the 2 cents. For those of you who I've asked to listen, you know what I'm talking about. I think that's everyone. All right. So today's topic again is exposing the truth in relationships, in yourself. And I just want to start off by saying this. It's important that if in life, if relationships, whether it's long-term or marriage, not everybody wants to be married. So if you do desire a long-term relationship, you have to put yourself in position to receive and be received. Far too long, people have said that this is me, I'm me. People just gonna have to accept me for who I am. And there's a misconception on what that actually means, because it doesn't mean that people shouldn't accept you, that people should accept you for who you are. What that means is the general essence of who you are as a person should be accepted. But the things that are wrong in your life or in another person's life, no one should ever accept those things. And it is very important that you expose those truths to yourself. And what do I mean by that? Far too many of us, we like to sweep things that happen to us under the rugs and tell no one about it. In some aspects, not even ourselves. I think of many people who I speak with all the time, and they talk about things that happen, but in the sense of it occurring and not how it affected them, how it's changed them, how it's made life worse for them. And then they carry that baggage into the next relationship, and to the next relationship, and into the relationship after that. And I'm going to be honest with you, is the one thing that I've been noticing about, and this is going to be our first topic for discussion, and that's arrested development. I posted a statement on social media the other day, and some people made light of it and thought it was a joke and stuff like that, but it's very serious. And it said something to the fact, I don't have it in front of me and I don't want to look for it at this point, but it said that many people suffer from arrested development and don't even realize that they do. And a few people made a joke about it. Oh, yeah, I couldn't really get into that TV show, whatever. But the arrested development it's a real thing. And a lot of people suffer from arrested development. And how do you know when people, what's the easiest way to see that someone's suffering from arrested development? And I'm going to tell you, it usually is the maturity that someone has in their lives and the way that they carry themselves. That's how you can tell when someone suffered an arrested development. And this happened recently, that I was talking to someone that I knew, and when I met her for the first time, and we were talking, and I immediately noticed there was something wrong with her, because she's in her 20s. And the interesting thing was, she didn't carry herself like a 20-something year old. I won't give her age away, but she's in the mid-20s, and she didn't carry herself like a someone that was in her mid-20s. So as we were talking, we sort of had a sidebar conversation other than the initial intake. And I asked her, did something happen to you in your life that was traumatic? And she was a little taken aback by that. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, because I see a person your age in front of me, but I'm not the way you're carrying yourself and the way that you're responding is showing me someone much younger. So as she kind of rolled back the shock a little bit, that I was able to see that right away, because not many people have, she confided in me that she experienced something that occurred in her life in high school. And it was extremely traumatic to her, to the fact that, this is what she's like today. And so the one thing that I did say to her, because I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist, I could help her with that, in terms of what she needs to get by. But I did explain to her that one thing that she needs to do is she needs to realize, one, that whatever happened to her was not her fault. When somebody victimizes you and they violate you, it is not your fault. I don't care if you were walking down the street naked or whatever. What someone does to you that you didn't ask to be done to you is not your fault. So I told her it wasn't your fault. The things that you did to protect yourself, you tried your best. So don't beat yourself over the decisions you made, because you were making a decision that someone that had no experience was making. And it wasn't wrong decisions. And you did what it was to protect yourself. So I said, you have to first start there. And then you need to really sit down and talk with somebody that can offer you counseling or some type of therapy that you can move past this, because you haven't moved past it and it's affecting your everyday life. And people don't realize how serious it is. So that's kind of what I want to get into a discussion about today. Donna Marie, I do know that you you're a pastor, a life coach, I believe you said before, and of course, a internationally award-winning author. So who has talked about things similar to this in terms of, people helping themselves and getting better and stuff like that. So what do you think about that?
Well, first, you've said a lot, and I really, you did a great job at, being able to notice and also, what I'm saying, bring light to um, like the behavior, but exposing the truth in arrested development and things like that. That's so true. Because many of us, and many times in life, when we go through that traumatic thing in our life, it gets us stuck at that moment. It's just like our growth level stops. And unless you get help, or, what I'm saying, you begin to self-help, or, reflect, or have the Lord, what I'm saying, in your life to help you, guide you through it, or go see the proper people to go see, then you get stuck in a spiral. And that's the main way that you can see people when they don't progress, or when they, like you said, when they handle things in a way that's not at the maturity level that you think that they should handle it at. And so I do think that you did a great job through observation. Along with myself, I can say, even with the things that happened to me, and my stuff is, suicide. I talk about that a lot, because there are a lot of people who are stuck in those areas. Even though it happened to me at the age of 14, quickly the Lord began to work with me to let me know that this was not who I was designed to be, because I was falling into the trap of what was going on at that age and what was going on at that time. And so that could have been easily a choice for me to just stay in that mindset, to say, oh, well, this is my life and this is how I'm going to be, and to think of myself at that lower level. But thanks be unto God, then I began to reflect. I began to get the self-help that I needed. I began to encourage myself in the Lord, and also do the actual work, like do the work to unlearn, do the work to read about some things, do the work to get to know myself before, I'm saying, I began to progress on. And in the context of relationships and different things that we're saying, that is really, really important. That's really, really important. And so I wrote down, being stuck in that maturity level. And that's really something that is true to life. You see it happening in many people today, because if they do not have the right people around them looking and paying attention, then it's easy for them to just feel like this is I can say this is normal, but this is the way that things are supposed to be, because what is really normal? But this is the way that things are supposed to be, because this is all that I've experienced, and no one around me has a different experience to bring me out of it, or to show me that this is not, something that I should continue to endure. And so I yield my mic, and this was a great opening question.
All right, Jim. So you've heard myself and LaDon Marie. What say you on the matter?
It's you're right about that. With the rest development, with the growth factor, that a traumatic experience can stop you in your tracks and derail you. The problem is that most people don't know how to get back on track afterwards. Your recognition of a trauma event based upon her thinking level versus her age um, was a very good observation. I'm not sure if anybody else notices, or they just
No,
think it's,
they didn't.
and that's the problem. Most of the people have been through that type of experience, and they think it's normal behavior because somebody had a traumatic experience in their lives, and they just think that she's acting normally. So, I mean, it's hard, but most people didn't recognize it, which is kind of, I won't say weird, but it's kind of like, they have a similar experience, they haven't gotten over it, and it's just, nobody never corrected her, nobody said anything to her about it until you did. And it's shows to the state of a lot of people around her. It just shows the state of they're in, and this problem is widespread more than you think. It's almost like an epidemic. But it just shows the type of behaviors that are tolerated, but they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you said of the victim, that they feel like it's their fault, or they did something wrong or something like that. And the majority, like 99%, is far from that. It just shows that it's a problem. It's a very societal problem. Excuse me, a societal problem that has not been addressed, that has not been talked about. And from a younger person, you don't know where to go, what steps to take, or especially if you internalize it. Obviously, she internalized it until you said something. So you internalize all the time, don't know who to talk to about it, because you feel like it's your fault, and you're walking with that shame, even though it's not for you to bear, because it's not your fault. And the process of opening up is hard, but the fact that people did not recognize it is more concerning, because they just think it's normal behavior, and it's not. Individuals, us have to be honest ourselves. A lot of people are not intuitive to figure things out. When they meet people, they don't want to make judgment calls. They're not good at it a majority of the time. Another set of the time is the people are not truthful when they're confronted about it. So you don't know what to think. What to think in that respect. I really do appreciate her truthfulness when you confronted her about it. She was very, it took her a while to open up, but at least she was willing to open up about it. I guess this is the first time somebody actually shown an interest.
Yeah.
It's so hard, and I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I'm just, based off of what you just told me, it's so hard. It's hard for people
The one thing that I will say to this matter is, and this is maybe a spiritual gift that I have, is that I can pick up things in a lot of people that most people don't see. And that sounds bizarre, but I'll give you a perfect example. Many years ago, I used to be in the chat room. Jim, you know all about that back in the day, WBS and all that. So I used to be in this chat room, and I guess there was a private message section or something. I forget what it was called. It was so long ago. I won't say how long, but a long time ago. Yeah. So there was a person that I befriended on there, but early in, our friendship that we were talking, she would write words. And at the time it was like, okay, you send it, then you wait, and then you send it. So I would read her words. And then I asked her if she was okay. So I said, are you okay? And then she said, why do you say that? And I said, because I'm reading these words, and the feeling that I'm getting from these words is that you're not happy or sad. You're somewhere in between that you can't seem to get out of. So you're not ever all the way happy, and you're not ever all the way sad. And there's a little darkness to you where you just don't see brightness the way most people do. And I remember that she was dumbfounded because she was like, you have never been in front of me. Never. You've never, and no one has ever noticed that about me. And we've been friends ever since. So there's a level of, I can't for sure say what, God's purpose of me to be able to feel people, but I usually get things, I usually can feel people out very easily, where I can kind of see things are going on and be able to identify them, because this is not the first time that I've sensed these things in people. This happened a previous time, and we've actually discussed the actual other person, and I try to, get her to get help, and, getting help, people actually seeking help is very difficult. People want to do it, but they just don't have the will sometimes to do it. And when there isn't a will to do something, people generally do what they have the will to do. So if you don't have a will to get help, and you have a will to do the wrong things, generally those people will end up doing the wrong things, even though they want the help. And that's the problem with sometimes arrested development, is the maturity level to get there is very difficult, because if you're not mature, especially if your arrested development is teenage and below, which is what happens to most people, especially women. A lot of women experience arrested development as girls, especially because of they've been molested or sexually assaulted or stuff like that. So you'll find a lot of times with these sexual abuses that these girls were at an early age, they've experienced arrested development. So you could meet a grown woman, and a grown woman could act like she's 8 years old. And you're like, why? You're an adult. Why are you behaving like that? But because the maturity to get help and to do the right thing is not evident. So what a person has the will to do is what they will do. And a lot of times, most people have the will to do the wrong things, because it's easier to do something that you're used to doing versus the things that you are not used to doing, that aren't second nature. And then you have to now go about and do it. So, I wanted to talk about that. And getting help is just very, very hard to do, because it's not easy for people to say that they are in need of help. Help me. I mean, think about it now. I think about people on the street that are lost. It's very hard for someone to say, oh, could you tell me where this place is or that place? It's very hard for people to. So imagine if you need emotional, psychological, or spiritual help. Most people just go through what they go through, and sometimes just hope that time just passes everything. But the thing with that is, if you don't heal, you don't heal. It's just, that's just the way it is. And that's what people have to understand. So being that I saw LaDonna Marie, she kind of did a Coming to America on me. So I figure I'll let her get in at this point. So LaDonna Marie, please enlighten me.
Yeah, you just said the magic word, and healing is what it's all about. And I don't know, and I can't speak for many people, but often when we have these conversations, we are always talking about the population who did not grow up with these things in their environment or their relationships or their parents didn't know to, talk about or help them understand certain things. And, then they get to going through different things, or as you get older, you're not going to seek the knowledge that you need, because at some point in your life, you do have to stop waiting on someone to tell you, and you just have to realize within yourself. But reflection is always a dynamic thing to do. When you reflect over your life, when you look at your life, I always talk about, I always think about the book that I wrote about mirror conversations. I was not just talking about looking in the mirror, looking at yourself, because that book in itself is so in depth to the person looking internal, because you have to learn about who you are. But a lot of people don't want to face the music. A lot of people, like you said before, this is just who I am and how I am, but it's not. It's who you choose to be now. Because when you're younger, sometimes you do not have the capacity to do or change who you are. But as you get older, it is your responsibility for your healing. It's your responsibility for your healing. Although things happen to you that, or things you went through, different things, but the healing is your responsibility. And that's the thing for me. I think the biggest thing for me in my life, even I had to unlearn. I talk a lot about unlearning things, because the negative things that were said, or the negative things that caused me to want to end my life, those things just didn't go away, because after I attempted to commit suicide, I kept growing. I had to unlearn the things that were said. I had to learn who I was as a person. So that took me getting in the mirror and saying my new affirmations about who I am and what I believe about myself. That meant me going on YouTube or wherever and watching positive, videos, or reading books about, what it would take for me to change and transform. Because anytime we transform, we have to be able to move from where we are to where we want to go. But I know that this podcast, and the podcast is when we help people, because a lot of people have not hit that aha. They haven't hit that aha moment that this is something that this is insanity, that I keep going to the same relationships, that I keep hitting my head up against the same wall of people, that this is something that needs to be changed. Because normal times I would tell people, if the situation is continuous to be the same, then you are the least common denominator. Then that means there's something within you that needs to either stop attracting those same types, or that the healing has not gone forth, because that is what is most needed. But things like this and conversations like this, podcasts like these, help people to understand where they are, because for some reason, some people just do not take the time to go introspective. I do it so much. I have a billion journals around here that the Lord helps to break down every part of my life. Because for me, even some of the things from my childhood, I didn't understand it until just like last year in 2020, but I was asking for an understanding. I wanted to know, why was this way, or why was this thought process this way, or what happened. But that's because I like to know. I want to know. Point example, and I'm going to land here. The book, the workbook that I have called Rebuilding Fragments, that book is actually, I asked the Lord to help me to break down my journey of transformation and overcoming obstacles in my own life, so that I could be able to help other people self-help and walk themselves through what they're going through. And it just be a basis of you finding out about who you are. Now you can take that level of understanding that you get, and then go see a counselor, then go see a pastor, then see someone who can help you to shine the light on things that you're uncomfortable to look at. And so that's just my part. Healing is necessary. And I land there.
All right, Jim. So the Donna Marie says some gems there, and healing is definitely important. And also, I want to alter something to ask you. I think this is a question that I want to ask you, and then then I'll kind of get on to the next topic that I wanted to discuss. But now, so here's the thing. I want people to know that when you definitely you have children or you have a family or you're close to people, you want to be able to encourage everyone to really look at themselves and expose themselves to the person in the mirror. That's really important. But here's the thing, and this is what I actually want you to talk about, because it's important for us on the other side of the coin to be able to relate to people who we are actually experiencing that. And hopefully people who care about us in turn will do the same to us. And I think that's what the problem is in society, is too many people are afraid to say the tough things because they get ostracized. And that's the point that I want to make. So, because in my experience, I've done those things at times. And the problem with that is when you are the single voice against the voice of 100, you tend to become the villain because people don't want to hear the negative things about themselves. So that is what I would like you to talk about in regards to this matter, is when you talk about people exposing themselves and you trying to help someone expose themselves to the person in the mirror, you could be villainized as a point of that. And the question that I want to pose to you is, have you ever experienced, because I feel like you're that kind of person that kind of wants to let people know there's something going on with them. They got to do something about it. I mean, at least that's the person that I know you to be for all of these years. So can you touch on that, your experience in times that you've encouraged people to kind of talk to that person in the mirror and let them know there's some things they got to work on?
I've done that plenty of times. It's hard to be a lone voice when everybody else is telling you the same thing over and over. But I always tell them one thing. I ask them one thing. From talking to these people over and over and doing these same things, have you ever had success? No. So what's the problem of running my advice? If you have no success, try my advice to see if you have success with that. It's the point of what you've been hearing and what has actually worked. And I think I've been using that analogy more than just being a lone voice. In the past, I used to try and tell them, look in the mirror, stuff like that, to reflect. You don't want to tell them, but you just have to say there's something wrong. And when I tried it plenty of times from high school to adulthood, you just met with a whole bunch of negativity because it's, oh, well, this person told me, that person told me, and this person told me. Half of the times when they talk, they don't explain the full story. Too many things is lost in translation, a lot, because you hear what you want to hear and you reject the others. So when you talk to another person about the issue happening, what somebody told you, did you comprehend what they told you? You have to answer these questions. You have to ask yourself these questions. I always tell you about it. Did you comprehend what was told to you? And if you was confused, did you ask follow-up questions? You can't just sit there and just take in a whole bunch of information and you don't comprehend it or anything, and then you talk to somebody else about it. I was vilified based on, that, oh, you shouldn't tell them that. You should tell them everything's gonna be okay, or, smooth things over, and stuff like that. And it was just disingenuous of people because either they wanted something from them, but people tell you something for their own benefit. And most people don't realize that. They think that, oh, they're really trying to help, this, that. They told me things that will help me, that I wanted, and when they said that I wanted to hear, that is when I just cut it off. They told me things I wanted to hear. That is the most difficult thing for me to hear from somebody else when I tell them something else, because it's that they're not being honest and you're not realizing that, because that's not what you want to hear. It's hard. It's hard to talk to people like that, and they paint you as a villain or somebody wrong or somebody who just doesn't get it. And then 5 years down the road, you have to hear, I'm sorry. That's like, my advice was not for 5 years down the road. My advice was for him for that at that moment when you really needed it. Mm-hmm. And it's hard, it's hard not to, I won't say be bitter, but to be, like, how can I put it, indifferent towards that apology, because it's like that's not really what was for at that moment. And it caused a lot. It caused a lot of pain. You know, I didn't mind the insults from people because it's just their way. To me now, insults are just a way of people responding to things that they don't understand or they don't hear or they don't want to hear. So insults to me doesn't really work anymore. You know, it shows how people's, you know, their maturity level and what they have their own arrested development when they do that. And that's how, you know, they chose to respond. It became a learning process on how to tell someone to look in the mirror, or to tell them, you know, oh, you know, are you ready to hear what I have to say? Because if you're seeking out my advice, I always tell people now, are you really willing to hear what I have to say?
Well, the one thing I learned, oh, let me play your villain music. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right, there's the villain. But the one thing, and I always say this, that many people want to hear the truth that agrees with them.
Mm-hmm.
When it doesn't agree with them, they don't want to hear it. And they'll let you know they don't want to hear that truth. And I always tell people, I'd rather you tell me the truth and hurt my feelings than you lie to me, because it's easy for me to recover from my feelings being hurt. It's harder to recover from somebody who didn't tell me the truth, especially when it was in front of me and I couldn't see it, because we can't see everything at all times. And I never want to be around people that can see things around me and refuse to tell me, because that happens so many times. And there'll be so many people, a brick could be falling from the sky and dropping on you, and they can see that brick and they'll let it fall on your head. I want you to push me out the way. So that's another instance too. You know, you got to understand that you can't just accept things that make you look favorable, because that's not reality. I always say this, that me and the saying, but I always say we're always the villain in someone else's story. So we may often be the good guy, but we're not 100% of the time going to be the hero. There are going to be some times where you're going to be the villain. And in those instances, whether you did something to someone else or you did something in your own life that was not healthy, you have to take into account that there's a possibility that you were wrong. And there's a talk show that I watch called Lapeef Let's Talk. And they talk about a lot of relationship issues. And there's a guy on there, Anton. He's always battling with these two women, Kay and mostly Kay, not Courtney. But he battles with her in Chicago Rilla, you know. And then there's some kind of guys, you know, they like to call them simps. They just come on there to agree with the ladies no matter what they say. So he kind of debates with people. But the one thing that he says is, even though I believe in what I say, I always accept the possibility that I may be wrong. And that's how we all must live life. We can't sit up here and think that we're going to be right on everything under the sun. There are going to be some things that we may believe that ultimately may be wrong at times. And you have to, even if you're 100% right. And I've been in a situation where I'm like, oh, you know, that I was wrong about that. But you, in a situation like that, when there's a dispute, you got to seek the truth, whatever the truth is in the matter. And if the truth disagrees with you, you got to accept it. Can't be above admitting that you were wrong. Because guess what? If you think no one has nothing to tell you, you're going to live a lonely life, because in places like that, when people fall off the cliff, it's because they listen to no one and walk to the edge with blindfolds on. Mm-hmm. So it's important that when people bring things to you, even if you don't like the message that they're saying, weigh the merits of their argument and seek the truth, whatever it leads to. If it means that there's certain things about you need to change, let it take you there. But if you went through all the discussion and you found out it was jealousy, just someone hating, whatever, because there are people that'll say things out of hate and jealousy, but you got to weigh those against it as well. So there's nothing wrong with somebody telling you something and they're jealous of you. And I've seen instances of that. I've experienced it myself, where people have told me things out of jealousy and hate. And then there's some people who told me out of sincerity for my well-being and wanted me to turn out on top. And I've learned to respect that and to weigh those options. And many times I have heeded the advice of those who say, oh, you're doing that wrong. You got to do this. You got to do that. Even though when you don't feel like doing it, sometimes somebody upsets you. You want to get revenge on them. And somebody will tell you, no, that's not what you do. You know, I've been there, you know, talk to my pastor, counsel me, you know, we prayed and stuff like that. And I came out better on the other side because I didn't do what my emotions wanted me to do. Emotions, your anger, your frustration will, you know, smack somebody or curse somebody out or be disrespectful or do something troubling. But when you seek to do things the right way, the best way for the best outcome, you've learned to move in a direction that is better for yourself. Not necessarily better for the other person, but sometimes what's best for yourself is what's best for the other person. You're fine if you honestly seek to get to the right direction. You'll find that what you do is not only good for yourself, but for other parties involved. Because if you both of sound mind and sound spirit and heart, you will come to the same place together with other people in this situation, if they're on that level. Now, if they're on the bad side and you're on the bad side and you come to the good side, they may stay on the bad side and you can't do anything about that. But you've got to allow yourself encouragement to do the right thing when the voice is against 100. Because 100 people would not care. They'll be your friend and they'll hang out with you and you know, eat off your dime and sleep in your house or whatever. But a lot of people won't tell you you're walking off that cliff. And if you don't believe me, ask Michael Jackson, because somebody let him get all that stuff done to him, all them drugs that was in his system. And, you know, when Whitney Houston was going through the trouble she was going through, where were the 100 voices? I'm sure 100 voices didn't tell her, stop that. That's not healthy. Go get help. Or smack whatever, you know, get that out your hand. Or, you know, not literal, but in a figuratively speaking manner. Or Michael Jackson when he was taking a propofol and stuff like that. There were a lot of people that allowed him to do that. And you clearly saw, I didn't live with Michael Jackson, but I saw how things were deteriorating in his life. And think about all the people from the video to his home that didn't say anything. And they knew he was suffering and healing wasn't in order. It was allowing him to function however he was, whether it was taking sleeping aids and stuff like that, but he never got the appropriate help that he needed. And we all know what happened in the end, unfortunately. So moving on from there, that's another aspect of exposing yourself, is allowing the ability for you to really see who you are. So the next point of order is what to reveal and what not to reveal. So a lot of times in discussion, we talk about things in regards to relationships, and we talk about people who have a past. We all have those. And LaDon Marie is very open about her past. She talks about a lot of things that she's experienced in life. But I do know other people, and myself included. I will say I was a person who never spoke about my past. Not intentionally, but I lived an isolated life. And a lot of times when you're isolated, you don't have a lot of people around you. You don't have a lot of people to encourage you, to advise you, guide you, and stuff like that. You can tend to follow a lifestyle of isolation. When you're a child and you're growing, you can grow into a life of isolation when you isolate your life from other people. So when things happen in your life, everything is close to the chest. And I brought that into adulthood, and a lot of times into my own relationships, where it's actually had a negative effect on that, because you may feel a certain way, you may think a certain way, and you don't put it out there into the universe for other people to know this is how you feel, this is how you think, this is where you're coming from. So more exactly, We talk about dysfunction, knowing your dysfunction and things like that. Many of us bring dysfunction to relationships. And I'm going to say, really, that's one of the main factors why relationships don't work. Person A and person B, they both bring their dysfunction to relationships. And the problem with that is there is a lack of understanding about dysfunction. Not everyone is a therapist. Not everyone is spiritually aware. Not everyone is a psychologist, psychiatrist, or pastor. So when you meet people and two persons, are bringing their dysfunction, it's very hard to identify. The only thing you can identify is that you don't like what the person is about, or you don't like what the person is saying or doing. There's never an understanding to why it's happening. And people don't understand that there's usually a reason behind the dysfunction that people carry into relationships. So I see LaDonna Marie see something there. So I'm going to be quiet for a little while and let her pick up where I left off, and then we're going to the next aspect of this. So LaDonna Marie, you can build upon that. You can give your own perspective, whatever you have there for the world.
Okay. So, and great input, and, adding to, what we're talking about, our discussion of, exposing our truth in people when we come into relationships, because I do believe, that people do bring their own different things into the relationship, because use two people who are meeting and they come from opposite backgrounds, maybe you be different races or different things and different upbringings. And then if there was some type of trauma, maybe emotional abuse or verbal abuse, and, we were talking about that earlier, those things hold with you longer than anything that, some of the other things. But in that aspect, I've learned over the time period, because even when I was really, really young and I was getting into relationships and they did not work out right, I still made sure that by the time I got into the next relationship, that I looked at, kind of scanned through, and I mean, this was always me. So I hope that the people that are listening can just apply it to something that you'll start doing to your life, because I felt like I was always a child that was really wise. I felt like I did not want to take whatever went wrong or whatever I could acknowledge from the first relationship into the second relationship. And if there was some things that I needed to work on, because I wasn't perfect. Back then, they got the LaDonna who I really wasn't too much hearing what you said. If I felt like it wasn't right or it wasn't, I was like, okay, well, no, that's not how I feel. So I did have to learn to agree to disagree. Those are things that I had to learn. And even about me, like myself, and I did not tell most of the people who I dated as I was younger, I didn't let them know about anything that had to do with the suicide, within my life. But in some aspects of my life, I was still wounded from that, because I was still trying to learn how and who I was. And so there were some aspects of a low self-esteem. There were some aspects of just settling, because we talked about that before in a relationship. I settled for some things because due to the fact of some of the things that I had gone through. And I do feel like when you are building in a relationship and you are getting in a relationship with a person, and like from the very beginning, you said long-term, when you're talking about long-term, when you're wanting to be in there with long-term, I do feel that at some point in time that you need to talk to them about these things. You need to talk about it, to them, so that they can understand and have a viewpoint of where you're coming from, because you're not always going to agree. And that's one of the things that I learned over my span of relationships that I had, is that, like I said before, we're coming from two different viewpoints. And so I may say tomato, you may say tomato. We may be saying the exact same thing, but I have to listen to it in the way that you're saying it. You have to listen to it in the way that I'm saying it. And so relationships are not always going to be easy. And one of the things that I know that too, when you get into a relationship, it often hypes up some of the things that are left undone, or some of the things that need to come to the to the surface that you need to identify and work on. So you may feel, because I say many times a relationship is not 50-50. You don't want the other person to complete you, but you want them to complement you. So you need to be walking into this 100%. But sometimes you may be still at 70. You might be still at 70 and you may feel like, hey, when we get in it, we're going to grow together, we're going to learn together. But then once you get in it, those things that are still there that you need to work on, they will begin to come and rise to the top. But then it's your decision. Then am I going to tell them what I've gone through, or am I going to continue to just act like I'm perfect and this is not me, it's you? So it's like in those situations, we just have to learn to grow on, know who we are, and we have to feel comfortable. And I know, ladies and gentlemen, you're out there and you're listening to all of this knowledge and wisdom, but at some point in time, you have to know yourself. You got to start looking at yourself. You got to look at yourself. You got to look internally. You got to look at the things that have happened in your life. And some of those things may even be generational. You may be the one that's dealing with it, but look back 3 generations and it could have started at grandma or great grandma. And it could be some things that have been traveling through your bloodline. But at some point in time, when we want a relationship and we don't want all the drama on the news and we don't want all that extra stuff and everybody in our surroundings knowing about who we are, we have to do the work. And I'm just going to land it there and pass it over.
I like that, because I want to actually twist it over to Jim, something else, because when you talked, it made me think about this. And the one thing that people have to understand is, well, what is the purpose of you getting into a relationship? Your relationship has to have purpose, because if you don't have a purpose, if there's not well, what is it going to look like a year from now? What is it going to look like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? It's almost like when you go for a job and in the interview, they say, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then you answer that. It's the same thing with relationships. So if you just want to be in a lot of short-term relationships, have fun today, gone tomorrow, doesn't matter what you do. But the truth of the matter is, in relationships, there has to be bonding, not just getting to know each other, but you have to bond with the person, because when it's all said and done, when your body's a little weak, the other person's shoulder needs to be strong. And that's the point of relationships, is you count on each other, you grow together, and you have to be honest. You can't worry about, am I going to offend this person? Am I going to push this person away from me? And I'll give a real short story, really brief, because I want to get Jim in on this. But some years ago, wasn't recently, there was someone who was a friend of a relative that I didn't see for a while. And then we kind of reconnected, started talking. So she was expressing interest in me, and she was very honest. And I have a lot of respect for very honest people that are open with truth about themselves. But the problem with the truth about herself was not that her honesty, it was what she was engaging in that was too much for me. And here's the thing. So she kind of told me about, she was sleeping with this guy, that guy, who had a big penis, who had a little penis. She slept with the pastor of a church, and this guy and that guy and this and that. And I'm listening to all these things. And so eventually it came to the crossroad, and she's like, oh, I want you to come see me and stuff like that. And initially I said yes, that I would go visit her, but then I didn't visit her. And Jim, you know the story. So when she spoke back to me, and I told her that I wasn't interested, the first thing she said was, why are you not interested? And I told her, I said, honestly speaking, the way that your lifestyle is, I just can't live in that world. I can't live in that world where you just, these things are what are important to you. There was never no us conversation. There was never her turning away from being the woman that was sleeping with all these people and the pastor of her church to this is who I'm going to be in the relationship. So it was very important for people to ask and answer the tough questions. So what she did say to me, and this is what my last word to her, and I think we never spoke after that day, was she said, why didn't I tell her that I had a problem with those things? And I said, listen, the one thing that I can't do is tell you how to be the woman for me. You have to already be that person. You're either the person for me or you're not. I can't tell you to become someone, because if that's not who you want to be, 9 times out of 10, you'll end up being the person you already were. And that was my point to her. So moving forward, in terms of that, you can't be afraid to expose yourself to people, because you're giving people the honest ability to decide if you're suitable for them in a relationship, and in reverse. So if I tell you what I'm about, yeah, there may be some painful truths about myself. You don't need to tell everyone your diary for 5 years, but things that have shaped your life are very important, and so Jim, I definitely would like to get your thoughts on that.
I probably have the least amount of experience of relationship wise in high school, early college. I was mostly lost out there. I didn't want anything because I didn't know what I wanted. And I was very honest with people about that. I was like, I just don't know what I want. I'm on my own. I never really had like a shoulder to go on when I was younger. So I thought that's the way life was supposed to be. You just take a machete, hatch through the jungle, and make your own path, and make your way through. And when some girls were interested in me, I'm not gonna lie, but I just feel like why? It was just like I haven't done anything to say or done anything special to say that well, through my opinion, that you say that I'm a very interesting person, or someone we could build a relationship with. And that was my fault. I didn't see anything. They did, and I never took it. I never took their advice. I just thought they was crazy.
So let me just ask you a question, because you've brought up an interesting scenario there. So did you ever know why you didn't really weren't as vocal or understanding about why you really didn't find an interest in relationships or really pursuing one actively?
Because you know what, I didn't. It's gonna sound silly, but I'm gonna say it. So growing up, I was mostly like a lone ranger. I did everything myself. I explored. I did stuff by myself. And part of the reason was that if I bring this person along, I feel like tied down, or I'll feel like I'll have a responsibility to them. And I didn't want that at that age, because not because I wasn't ready, it's because my upbringing, there was a lack of responsibility for me.
Now, let me ask you this. I didn't mean to interview you, but I want to say we kind of had a similar conversation before, and you said something about being around your certain members of your family. Do you remember that? Like bringing people into your environment that you didn't want them to see specific individuals. I don't know if you remember saying that in the previous episode.
Specific individuals.
Yes.
Yeah. Circle was kind of wild. Well, it's the problem. This is the problem. I looked through the world through only my lens. I did not see from what other people, and that made me embarrassed. I didn't want them meeting, my mother's the first thing. I didn't want any woman meeting my mother. She was special in her own way. We'll just leave it at that. And I'm like, nah, done. As a one of her youngest children, the younger you are, the more, I don't know, attached or something they get, and it's women and their sons, so it's like,
Now, did you always know that? I don't know. This feels juicy to me. I don't know why. This feels juicy.
I did not know that until I took my first psych course in college. This professor I had,
Self-help, by the way, self-help. Okay.
The psychology, it's like my old psychology professor. This dude was, I don't know, I think he was like, I won't say a top. He was a top in his area of field, which was dynamics and relationships, business wise.
And his name wasn't Jonathan St. James, by the way, just to let you know. Just kidding.
He was going over. He didn't teach textbook, thank God. He really taught. He had his own syllabus and his own book. They get from me. But this book was based upon everything that he'd done. The names were changed to protect the innocent. Type of thing. And he detailed everything what he has been through, counseling, stuff like that for years. And this one case was like a Norman Bates type. Not everybody saw Psycho. It was like a Norman Bates type. And I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my goodness, it reminded me eerily similar to mom. So that was the start of my journey of realizing and wiping the dirt from the lens of my eyes and seeing things from a different perspective. Now, how that affected me was that you always think you're the only person going through it and nobody else will understand or judge, which always was my first mistake. And half the women that were interested in me, I did not want them to get the wrong impression that I'm like, my family. I am. I feel like they couldn't differentiate between my mother or myself or certain upbringings that I had that I have managed to get rid of at a younger age, and not fall for those things. So I didn't want to be guilt by association. I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want to do these things, but I didn't take the other person's feelings into account that, they might have something they may be embarrassed of. And, maybe if I made the first step, they probably would have told me something and things would have been okay. As a younger person, sometimes when you talk to a peer, not exactly an adult, but a person close to your age, you feel more comfortable around them sometimes. And that's really how I didn't think about, but that's really how it is, how it could have been. And that ruined that type of dynamic I could have at a younger age. When I got older and I took more courses and give little bits and pieces out to people and see what their opinion was, I feel like my situation was nothing compared to some of these people, and that I could have offered more than what I wanted to expect from people. And that's when I realized that maybe I can give more, even though I have to do the rest of the stuff on my own. It doesn't mean I can't give more to others to try and see, if they need help, if they get help or something of the sort. And the type of illusion is, it was I won't say it was a waste, but it was just a hard endeavor. And that's what trying to tell you, it was a hard endeavor, but it was an endeavor that I had to take, that I realized I had to push myself through, and to realize if I'm going to have to talk with any woman, that is something I had to get over, that shame, that guilt, that type of thing. When I became older, and it was a lot easier to do that. But they felt, the other person, I realized they felt a different, certain kind of way, that I was too confident or something of the sort. And it was not that. It was just that, in relationships, you have to give. You always have to give. You have to give something. You have to give to make realize the person that you're serious. And I don't mean financially or materially. It's emotionally, supportively, stuff like that. So if I was being selfish with that, most of women thought, I wasn't serious. And that was another problem. I did not give emotionally. I didn't have no money as a younger person, so I couldn't give that, definitely, but I couldn't give anything emotionally. And that was the issue that made me that I had to realize on my own. The communication aspect. I didn't know how to communicate. They didn't know how to communicate what they want because they were young. I didn't know how to communicate anything because I was lost. And the growth factor has to be able to say that you have to learn how to communicate. That's your growth factor. When you learn how to communicate with others on a different wavelength, but you manage to get what you say across. That is the way that you can make your connection.
So before I forget, because now you just brought me on to something that I wanted to swing back to that I originally said that we would talk about. So with that being said, I think this is how I want to pose this part of the conversation, because we talked about this earlier before the show. And, asking the questions and answering the questions sometimes are very important. And just listening to you talk just now, it made me think about that. And I think I want to let this be the last point of discussion, and then we'll finish off on the show. But so in regards to relationships, how important do you think, because I think it's very important that you talk about sometimes relationships that you were in so people could understand where you came from. And, I was having a discussion recently with someone, and I noticed that the person wasn't in a relationship, but was not so long ago in a very committed relationship. So I saw all these photos of this relationship that this person was in. So my question to her was, what happened? Why are you not together anymore? And the answer to that question was, it's in my past and it's none of your business. Now, in a general discussion, I would definitely say it's not any of my business, but I did follow up because I wanted to know. So if you were getting into a relationship and a man asked you about that because he noticed that on your social media, you had like 1,000 pictures of this man. So if you got 1,000 pictures of some man on Facebook or Instagram, and you still got them on, but you want to get in a relationship with someone else, why do you still have these pictures up? So she did answer the question. She said, which I thought was straight cap, because here's the thing. You say you don't have any time, but you're always on social media. So clearly, if let's say you only have 5 minutes, how long does it take to delete pictures in 5 minutes? So clearly, you weren't being honest. And I don't know why she wasn't being honest, because I have no leg in the game, but you could clearly, you're on Facebook, on Instagram, wherever, all your social medias, you're on there for hours and you're posting videos, you're making videos and are making lives and stuff like that. So clearly you have an opportunity to delete photos. But the point that she made is, even if a guy was interested in her, she would never even discuss that. But here's the thing, that now that's a problem, because what do you owe the past at the cost for the future? Because your past is already gone. So if somebody's asking you about a relationship and what happened, why are you not with this guy that you have 200 pictures of on social media, and you're trying to talk to me, how is it no one's business? Because if you don't want it to be anyone's business, why would you still have those photos online? So the point that I'm making here, and like I said, it's going to be my opinion. I don't need anyone to give me a play-by-play history of their life. But if I see something that appears to be a major point in your life where you've moved halfway across the world to be with someone, and I want to be with you, I want to know what happened there. Because a lot of times what people don't realize is what you do in relationships in the past, you tend to do over and over again until you stop them. And most people don't. And that's why so many people struggle in relationships, because they bring the same dysfunction, as we started off in the beginning of this conversation, to the next relationship and the next relationship. So I want to get in a relationship with a woman in 2021. If I need to ask a question, I need to know why that relationship didn't work out, because I want to know, is this going to be a repeat of that relationship? And I'm going to tell you folks out there, I mean, you have your own methods, but it's very important to know where somebody is coming from. Does that make sense to you? You need to know where someone is coming from so that you can know where they are going. Because you can't, if you just pretend nothing ever happened before today and you act like this person was born yesterday, like Eve, if Adam woke up and Eve was there, you're in for something else, because everybody has lived before they met you. And I think it's important to understand what you're bringing, not so much in terms of, like Jim said, money, whatever else, I forget what he said beside the money, because I remember the money. But people need to know what you're bringing in your heart, in your mind, in your body, and in your soul. If you're dying, you got 6 months to live. I think you might want to tell somebody when you meet them, well, the doctor said I'm fighting this cancer, but he's giving me 6 months. That's fair, because now the person that you're getting involved with, they can decide what to do for the next step. But if you think everything is personal, then my advice to you, maybe you're not ready for a relationship with someone, because not a play-by-play. I think anybody who wants to know everything that happened every single day in your life, that's a little extra. But if somebody's asking you, well, did you ever get engaged before? Yes, I was engaged. Well, what happened? Oh, that's private. No, it's not. Because if I want to marry you, I want to know why you didn't get married before. Am I the person that you want to get married to? And I've been there, and I can tell you, I've been there. And that's how I ended up not marrying a specific person who may watch this podcast, and she knows what happened, but I don't think she's watching. But to play it safe, I won't mention her name. But we had the tough discussion. I told her that some things troubled me. We talked about it. She threw a tantrum in the house, and that was the beginning of the end, because I was like, yeah, if you cannot respectfully answer the tough questions, that's the sign of a bigger problem at hand. And that was the 100% truth. All right, so this is going to be our final topic. Donna Marie, you
was that woman of Jigglypuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Well, now if she's listening, she probably know we're talking about her anyway. But yes, she was. And if it wasn't for the fact this specific thing happened, I probably would have married her and ended up in no time divorced, because she wanted to be married. She just didn't want to marry Jonathan St. James, if you understand what I'm saying. Some people, they just want the marriage. They want the wedding. They don't want the marriage. So she didn't want the marriage. She just wanted the wedding, because that was a point in her life. So we had to have the tough conversation. And I am grateful that she did. She was the one that we kind of got into that, but I also gave her the tough discussion as well. And it ended up exploding, but that was the best explosion that happened in my life, because it told me I needed to move on. And although we made up the next day and everything was lovey-dovey, but nothing changed. So that's my point in you having to answer these questions when people ask them, because you're not getting in a relationship with yourself. You're getting in a relationship with another person. They don't know what's going on in your life. And it's not fair that you think everything is private, that you can't reveal those things to them. Because if you get married, now this person is attached to you in the spiritual realm and in the legal realm. So I'm going to be quiet there. Let LaDon Marie come on in, Jim, and then we're going to close on out. Well, we'll see what happens here. Go ahead, LaDon Marie.
Thank you so much for allowing me to jump in here. Yeah, exposing the truth about past relationships when you're getting into a relationship, I think that is important. The thing about it is we have to make sure that you do it at a opportune time. You all both said something, and I wrote it down because I wanted to bring it to the point, up to the surface, is just making sure that emotional part of a relationship, because anytime you get ready to express or tell someone something that you're going through, you know what I'm saying, you're sharing with them a part of your life. And you have to be sure that this is somebody that, you know what I'm saying, that we're going long-term with, because you just want to tell your life to each and every person. But I do feel that, parts of your life that are important, that will, be the trajectory of whatever the relationship that you're about to enter into. You have to discuss some of those things, because the person, you would want them to know in the beginning, you would want them to know in the, you know what I'm saying, in when the interim of where you feel emotionally available to share with them your life, so that they can have a better understanding of who you are as a person, what you're going to bring to the relationship. And so I wholeheartedly stand behind the fact of you talking to another person about who you are, and how you've been built, and the things that you've gone through, so that they can understand. I mean, I don't know. I just feel that it's so important, because missing out on that important pieces, or like pieces of who you are, will be missing. I mean, when you're getting into a relationship, you will still be learning each other, you know what I'm saying, until the day that you all to part. But in the beginning, it's very, very necessary for you all to find a point in the dating, moving into, we're getting into a relationship, that you all take some time to have those necessary conversations, because you have to know where they are and what they think, and you have to know how they are, and what they think about a lot of things, and even the things that, like we talked about trauma earlier, the things that hurt them, that disappoint them. You'll have to know those things, so that you'll have a better perspective, and you can be able to meet them where they are, and not just think, what I'm saying, just guess, oh, this is, or just talk about something, and like you said, even when you began to talk about it, she blew up. And so had you not brought it up, then maybe that situation wouldn't have come up to way down the road. But you have to, and I had down even creating scenarios, even in dating process, you can talk about, how would you like to have more kids, or how do you feel about this? You ask different questions about different things to get information. If it's a relationship you're going to be in long term, I just feel like you all should be emotionally available to share, because that is important information.
Message.
I agree with that. And I just want to say this, because my mother was married many times. But here's the thing that didn't happen. She never once discussed anything with any person that she was married to. And ultimately, when she died alone with no one. But later in life, we found out that she was schizophrenic, and most likely was schizophrenic most of her life. But here's the thing. When you talk to each other and you really get to know the person you're with, those are things that you could possibly find out, or at least see something where she could have been encouraged to get help and have been able to identify it and deal with those things early on, and not discover it later in life when she was at the end. So I want people to think about that. All right, at this time, Jim, you know what it is. Relationship Braces. Bringing hearts together, one heart at a time. Jim, this final message from you. How do people in your eyes expose the truth in themselves for meaningful relationships? Jim.
I want to go back to the tough conversations, especially when you're in the dating period. I have noticed that the type of questions that are asked in the courting phase and the being relationship phase really do matter. Like what you said, with about your mother and the whole schizophrenia things, that no one never really asks the questions needed. And what I realized is that when people or individuals take interest in me, they ask me questions, a different set of questions, different than from a normal run-of-the-mill out in the street you meet for 5 seconds type questions. And you have to take those into account, that they have noticed something that maybe you, like what you said, you don't know about, or you just glossed over, or you didn't really want to confront. And at that point, you have a couple of options on how you respond. what you should really do is have someone really took time to really notice that. You should really respond truthfully because they have really known something or saw something in you that nobody else hasn't even cared about yet. So it's a kind of a question that is maybe difficult to answer, that because you never had it asked to you before, or you probably will avoid the question because you don't want to answer. Whatever it may be, you always have to answer as truthfully as possible. If you don't know how to communicate it, then the person who has taken the time to ask that type of question, from what you will say, will get the truth from that. And they'll know that you have a hard time communicating because you're probably 2 to 1, your reaction is going to be like, no one's ever asked me that before. It's hard because most individuals in that type of phase don't want to ask those type of questions because they feel like it's going to scare someone off, or, you can come off a certain way that you may think that, you're better than them or blah, blah. That's really not the point of those questions. The point of those questions is to realize, A, what are you getting yourself into? B, how can you help adjust, compensate, and then enforce or unlearn and then reinforce to do different type of attitude for that person. It shows you how to progress forward. What are the next steps that you should take for that person and for yourself? And, hopefully that you'll come to that, I won't say an agreement, but to a conclusion that, is beneficial for everyone, that it helps you to become a better person and that you can be more forthcoming, forthright, and actually, not defensive when you're confronted with these type of things. People's defense mechanisms are always on high more than to say that, you're amicable recognitions. And what you really have to learn is that life doesn't have to be a battle. Life's not meant to be a battle. It's meant to be a discovery. That's why you have your journey, your trip, your own path, the road. You are discovering, first, yourself when you're younger, the sense of self. And then you discover who you are, who you want to go to be as a person, and then what you want to do for a career. If you want a career, what you want to do with the rest of your life. And to me, that type of journey that you have to let other people in. It's not a road for you to go by yourself.
All right, now, so I think I'm just going to leave it there and close out. But before we close out, of course, LaDon Marie, I saw the shark in the water over there. Please let us know about your stuff, your books, your merch, all of that.
Thank you so much. I was holding it up because he said the magic word, the journey. And, I wrote this book about the journey, the path, and it tells a little bit about my journey and how to help people to heal and see that it's okay and it's necessary to heal. And in this book, God allowed me to share some of my story and how I feel on, how things played out in different circumstances and situations. Even when we're talking about relationships, like Settle No More, there's a chapter in the book, and right now there are 2 copies, hard copies, left on Amazon available, and I think it's about 6 paperback copies. I've had the reviews that have been coming up lately have been really, really good because they have captured what I wanted and intended for each of the readers to learn when they read the book and when they picked up the book. And I wanted to just share one of them, with the listeners, because I promise you, I'm not just trying to sell books, but when I write books, they're for a time period and a time stamp, and they're for people who, need to understand their journey, because I love the way he was sharing all of the things that happened in his life. This probably be like the most time he's shared but different things that were going on in Jim in his life. And I'm grateful because, people are listening and people will learn, different things that they may need to, grow from, and they get their own aha moment. But one of the last persons that just said that the title suggests that the book is about the journey of the life of the author and the way her approach to life changed. After hard times, she took this God path and left everything to his decision. Later, she started to releasing the importance of her life. This book is about her belief in God and spirituality. She also mentions some quotes and Bible content that will help you along your way. The language is simple and lucid, and she considers everything that happens in her life only because God will provide for her. But at the same time, hard work is equally important. And the hard work piece was me doing the actual work. Like I said earlier, I could have stayed at the state that I was in, 14, discombobulated, confused, low self-esteem, and just letting life happen to me. But I decided along with God to take my life into my hands, into his hands, and to follow the path that was for me. And along that path, I had to still learn different things. So just like we're talking about today, don't just leave it to this is just the way that I am, but take the time to research who you are, look at what you've gone through, and then grow through what you're going through. You can find my books on Amazon under LaDonna Marie, and also my website, www.ladonnamarie.org. Thank you again.
All right. I think this was a wonderful show, and we want to thank everyone for tuning in, listening, wherever it may be, and whatever time of the day or week it is. With that being said, it is Jonathan with LaDonna Marie and Jim wishing you all a lovely time. Take care. Goodbye.